Stephen, thanks for joining me this afternoon. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your involvement with the creative arts?
Yeah, my name's Stephen Harland, and I am a music promoter at the Westgarth Social Club in Middlesbrough. I started originally around 10 years ago. It was a complete accident. I never intended to be a music promoter. What happened was I used to go to a club in Middlesbrough called Middlesbrough Rock Garden, which people of a certain age will remember it. It used to be a place for punk rock back in 1977 to 1981, and heavy metal on a Friday. When I started going in 1979, it was primarily the punk bands on the Saturday night. The punk bands on the Saturday night and the heavy metal bands on the Friday night. And never the twain shall meet, because if I went as a punk to see Motorhead or Girls' School, I'm not being rude, but I probably wouldn't be here to tell the tale today. So that is how I kind of started getting interested in live music. But I started up a group on Facebook for Middlesbrough Rock Garden back in 2009, about a year before we actually ever did any live music. But the strange thing is, I never started the group to put live music on. It was just a sort of like, because we're all spread around the globe now, it was a way of getting people who'd gone to that club, whatever music they were into, back together. And so after about 6 months, 3 of the girls that used to go there suggested we have a reunion, which I'd only ever put one thing on in my life, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do. So I posted out on the group, if anyone's interested in helping us with a reunion. And a lad called Dave Griffiths came along, and another lad came in just before we got going called Gary McGee. And we got 6 bands from that era that played during that time. And we did this reunion in September 2010. It was sold out. It was at the Georgian. It was only 180 capacity then, but it was sold out. And we had people travel from Brighton, from London, and it was just a brilliant night, and 6 bands did half an hour each, but it got everybody back together. Now, the original plan was to just do one more show, and Dave wanted to put Penetration on. That's a punk band called Penetration from Ferry Hill in County Durham. And I wanted to put a band on from Gateshead called Punishment of Luxury, and that was it. We weren't going to do any more gigs. That would be it. But here I am 10 years later. Me and Dave ended up promoting 30 shows together. Then we went our separate ways. I've now done 111 shows in 10 years, and Dave still promotes himself. He does his own stuff, and I do my own stuff. And it just carried on from there, really. It's really bizarre how it came about.
Well, I love that story. I love DIY creation of lasting events and ideas. I just think that's utterly fantastic. I think a lot of the best stuff I've ever come across has just been somebody feeling that they're inspired to do it, and you only need a couple of mates to give you the courage, and then
that's right.
And here you are 10 years later. Terrific. So can you because I know the Westgarth, like many other places, is in trouble at the moment. You've got a bit of a fundraiser going. Can you tell us a little bit about the Westgarth itself and why people should be putting some money into this little fund to try and help it?
Yeah, I mean, we originally started promoting there back in 2013, and Steve Callahan, who runs that venue on behalf of the members, I've always found Steve very approachable. In fact, it's probably, in my opinion, I mean, I've run out of the venues, but he's the best I've ever dealt with. When you talk to him, he's straightforward with you. And we have the use of both rooms, which is the downstairs, which is Westgarth 2, and then the upstairs room as well. So if we ever have any issues, like sometimes, I know it probably sounds a bit daft, but you might have things like I know, like the lights in the dressing room aren't working upstairs, so you have to get that sorted for the bands and stuff. It's just little things, but he's always very approachable, and we always get it sorted in the end. But the Westgarth itself, since March, because of COVID and coronavirus, it's actually been closed, so it hasn't run any shows whatsoever. I mean, I had 6 shows to take place between March through to December, and I'm not the only promoter that works out of that venue. Dave Griffiths does, and there's Andy Carr from If the Kids Are Solid Gold, and then there's Henry Carden from Pay for the Piano. But there's other promoters as well who use that venue, DIY promoters. And unfortunately, none of us have been able to use that venue whatsoever. So it's been closed for, 9 months now? And Steve, speaking to him the other week, said they're looking at reopening in March. But the problem we've got is that I do a lot of bands that come from further afield. Like I've put a band on called the Bell Rays from Los Angeles 3 times now. And for me to be able to do that, I've got to have the capacity to be able to have a full room. So because of the way things are, I know they're going on about the vaccine now, but by the time they roll it out, the only really people I can put on are solo artists. So in my case, that would be like TV Smith of the adverts, who will come to the Westgarth. He's been there 5 times previously. He'll do a solo performance for an hour and a half. We usually get about 70 people in the downstairs room. And, there's a lot of other people that will come and play, but because of the limitations on restrictions on the capacity, until we get like up and fully running again, what we're trying to do is the promoters are trying to raise this money so that when they want to put somebody on, like a solo artist or a duo or whatever, it probably wouldn't be a full band, well, not a full touring band anyway, and hopefully be able to bring people back to the venue on the limited capacity, and then that can start, moving forward, and hopefully by the time we get to September, October, we're back to normal again. That's the intention, but the idea behind raising the money is to provide a fund for all the promoters to be able to help pay for a PA and the promotion of it, and then hopefully that will get things going again. And like I say, I mean, obviously, Andy does If the Kids Are Solid Gold, Andy Carr, and Henry does Pay for the Piano. They run Twisterella Festival in Middlesbrough. I do my own thing. I know other people do, but I run about 10 to 12 shows, every year from that one venue. Even shows I've got planned for like February, The Godfathers, and then The Men That Couldn't Hang. Unfortunately, because of the uncertainty, I've had to move them back with the band's, cooperation. So The Men That Couldn't Hang at the moment's going from February to July, and The Godfathers is going from February to September. Fingers crossed, we will be able to have full capacity, because that's the only way I can work with touring bands. Those bands want to play the Westgarth, don't get me wrong, but it's got to be financially right for them as well, because they've got to meet their costs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a situation we're in, isn't it? Because we still don't know what we're working towards. So that's what it's about at the moment, subsidising the arts in whatever way we can at the moment to see us through until hopefully we're going to come out of this and get back to normal. Because as you say, it's not just that you can put bands or gigs on, it's being able to have enough capacity for it to pay for itself. But in the meantime, the fear is that we're going to lose all these venues, we're going to lose the promoters, we're going to, so if you're out there and you've got a little bit of spare money, when I post this video up, I'll put the link to the fund. So pop a few quid in there. Stephen's kindly donating his fee for this to the cause. It's really worthwhile. I mean, for me, it was one of the first venues I ever performed at. Tried out some new material there as part of the Electric Kool-Aid Cabaret. I've been some terrific gigs. I mean, seeing Silver Apples was just, I didn't think that was a lifetime's ambition, and to see it in such a fantastic venue was just, you know, really overwhelming for me. It's one of the best gigs I've ever been to. A few months ago, I read something by David Byrne talking about how music scenes work and the need for venues of different capacity, and how important it is that you can't have like the big venues like the Arena, the Empire, you know, the O2, whatever, Wembley Stadium. Before you can think about that, you've got to have these little venues where you home.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we quite often go to the Cluny in Newcastle to see bands up there, because quite often if bands don't come to Middlesbrough, and there's quite a few won't, you know, for whatever reason. But like I say, we'll go further afield. I mean, my wife's a Bruce Springsteen fan, and if he's not playing in the UK and he's doing somewhere in Europe, she'll sort the flights out so we can fly out to go and see him, you know. And we've been to America to see Bruce on the Broadway in New York when he did his solo show. I won't tell you the price of the tickets, but it was well worth it because we had front row seats, you know. It was an amazing experience. You know, I'm not a massive Springsteen fan, but to experience that was it was just amazing, totally, you know, really gobsmacking to be there in front of Springsteen. And he was absolutely very humble. I was amazed at the story that he told on stage, you know, and how humble he was for somebody so commercially successful. It was amazing, and we got to shake his hand at the end of the show, you know. So yeah, fantastic. So, but going back to Newcastle, sorry. Yeah, I mean, we're always up there. You know, the Cluny puts on like things like Kid Congo and the Pink Monkey Birds, that kind of stuff. You know, and if they only usually play like cities, you know, they don't normally play provincial towns. So it's either Newcastle or Manchester, you know. So we'll go to Manchester or Newcastle or wherever's convenient. So when we're not promoting live music, because my wife actually promotes with me, we'll go. I mean, I remember there was somebody playing. The closest we were playing was Birmingham. So we spent the weekend in Birmingham. You know, I drove down and we just spent the weekend in Birmingham because that was the closest. And we thought we might not ever get to see them again as well. That was the other thing. So we drove down there to see them, and it was fantastic, you know.
Yeah. But then, as you say, you've got bands flying in from LA to play the Westgarth in Middlesbrough, and that's a mighty fine thing. And coming back, because, you know, as you say, it's like Middlesbrough has a reputation, perhaps, and might not sound like the most appealing place to put on your tour sheet, but actually, I think everybody who comes here has a right old time of it. I've not been to a gig in Middlesbrough that's been anything other than absolutely fantastic, you know. From things like, you know, the Specials to Sleaford Mods, to Silver Apples, like, you know, I'm a very happy punter, to be said.
Yeah, I think also, I think from a promoting point of view, going back to what the comments you made just now about Middlesbrough, I always remember there was a band from London called Gallant Drunk, and they'd reformed. And I always remember somebody at the Georgian at Tees Music Alliance said, "You'll never get Gallant Drunk to come and play at Stockton on Tees." And I thought, well, they can only say no. So I made them the offer, which included accommodation and also some food, you know, a rider, hot meal, and they accepted it. And they weren't expensive, believe you me. I was quite surprised, pleasantly surprised. And they came and played the Georgian. They also played the Westgarth back in 2014, but they haven't done anything since then. But the fact that they came and played, the idea for me for promoting live music as well isn't just about putting the band on the stage. It's what you do for the band when they come to the venue, which, i.e., as in the Godfathers, we book them into Al Forno's up the road, the Italian restaurant. So they get booked into there, they have a nice meal, and then they come back to the Westgarth and they play the show for us. But they know they're going to get looked after. It doesn't have to be at Al Forno's. My wife will cook like, she's a vegetarian, so she'll cook like a vegetarian curry and rice in a big like hot pot. The hardest thing with that is we live in Mask by the Sea and there's 3 speed bumps to get over with the hot pot. And you know, I have people tailgating me around the Quarry Lane roundabout, which is a big, massive roundabout that leads, if you go one direction to Saltburn. But I get people tailgating me, and I'm thinking, I daren't go any quicker because the curry will go all over the back of my car. So, but she does all the food. She does them wraps, you know, peanut butter and carrot and all that kind of stuff. She does sandwiches. And I always take photographs of everything, post them on social media, and I laugh because some of my mates who aren't in bands say they're going to form a band so they can come and play a gig for us at the Westgarth because they get so well looked after.
Brilliant.
So, you know, so that's what it's about, really.
Awesome. So come to Middlesbrough, you're going to get a warm welcome. Come and play here, come and see it for yourselves. And in the meantime, if anyone out there has got a little bit of cash, throw it into the Westgarth. Stephen, it's been brilliant talking to you, and I very much hope to I'll be there for the Men They Couldn't Hang and for the Godfathers. They're both bands I've seen, but probably not for about 30 years, maybe 30 years. So it'd be nice to duck back in there. Brilliant. Take care. Let's raise a glass when this is all over.
Okay, thank you. Been a
All
pleasure.
right, Stephen.
Cheers now, bye.